Hello, welcome to the Sutliffian Report. Today I have with me Leah, and I have a lot to share today. This past week I lost my father. I'm going to share a little bit about that, and I'm going to talk about a new topic, a new book that I'm going to be working on. And I never thought I would be, never thought I wouldn't be working on part of this. But I never put the two things together, and I can thank Lloyd de Jong for that. I have long been into apologetics. I have long been into studying things like Gnosticism since I was in my teens. And here I am, just turned 58, and now I'm starting to put things together even more than, it's kind of mind-numbing to me. So I'm going to give you a tease of what that is today as well. What I want to start out with is the Word of God, because that is always the right way to start. And let's get into that. Today I have with me 1 John 1, 5-7. This then is the message which we have heard of him and declare unto you, that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not have the truth. But if we walk in the light, as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another, and the blood of Jesus Christ, his Son, cleanses us from all sin. Jesus is the one whom the apostles follow, his message being a message from Jesus, God's Son. That message declares the excellence of God, that there is no darkness within him. In Taoism and other Asian beliefs, there's a doctrine that there's no light without darkness. God is calling that belief a lie. In him there is no darkness. In him there is no lie, no deception. In him all glory and goodness are there. This is what we hope for and dream of. Why worship anything else? It's not worthy of your worship. We believe in anything. Why believe in anything but his greatness? Why settle for a belief that belittles something men would call a God? Our God is so much bigger. Dear Lord Jesus, may you be lifted up. May your glory not be given to another. May we live singing praises to your name for your wonderful works and saving grace. Thank you, Lord. Amen. Now,
amen. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't want to open it sooner because she was screaming, but amen.
Let's see. I think we got Red in here. No, Isa. Okay. I'm going to. My father died, and he died this past Friday. And I read his eulogy. I'm going to actually share some of that. I can't share any of the detailed information because that just would not be appropriate. But I want to share what kind of a life, what kind of a father I had. Um, it made my last book extremely difficult to write. I spent months on one chapter, which was about hatred, because my father and mother taught me to love. They taught love to us in how they lived, in how they treated us, and everything. So, I'm going to share a little bit of details, but I want to give you a clue as to who this man was, my dad. So bear with me just a second. My father loved music, and I know my picture's fading out. I still have to go get the new computer, and that is definitely going to have to happen. That's the way this keeps looking. All right, so let me pull up that video. I have to share this screen, so this is going to be a little odd, and I want to play something of him. So just hold on a second. This is my dad and one of his favorite songs. At the age of 86. He can't read the music. Not anymore. Thank you. Hit stop sharing here. Okay. My dad was rather unique. That was one of the songs he truly loved, and he liked to share music. So let me tell you what I shared about my father. Dad taught us many life lessons, and Mom did too. But the Bible says teaching is a gift given to our families. My family's filled with teachers, thanks to Mom and Dad. One sister went into working with pre-K, another went into instrumental music. I'm the oldest one, but I was the last one to go into teaching. I went into special education and social studies. I tried to avoid it. I really tried to avoid going to teaching, but I did. The funny thing about this was, out of all of us, I was the one who had Dad as a band teacher. That meant to ride on band days with a catch of setting up the chairs, but that first day made it all worth it. Here I was in 6th grade, sitting down, playing second French horn, and Dad got on the podium, and I saw something I'd never seen before, a smile that said he loved teaching. And I sat there. I remember thinking, how come I've never seen that smile before? Here I am, 6th grade. Where did that come from? It made me think over the years, and here I am, 52 years later, and I still think about that. Over the years, Dad taught us many lessons. Being the oldest, I sometimes got the first version of those lessons. Practice makes perfect was taught to me. For my baby sister, it was practice makes permanent. One of the most important lessons Dad taught us was to have friends. In college, my dad formed lifelong friendships with four good friends. They were known as the four S's, and with a few others. Yeah. Along with their wives, these friends stayed together. They traveled the world, played cards, played music, and went to endless concerts. One of them was his best friend for 65 years. These two families, their family, this family and mine, wow, we grew up together. They had kids. My father and us, we became fast friends. We grew up together. We're still friends. We formed lifelong memories as their children. We went on a trip to California that I will never forget. And I was really young back then. I might have been 5 or 6. You know, these friendships between our parents made both sets of parents to us. And that was something. There's others friends that he had. Dad was just a loyal friend, and he had loyal friends. Even to the last day, he let us know how important those friendships were. My father taught us family should come first. Every chance we got, we went to Gloversville to visit grandma and relatives. This is up in the Adirondacks and 200 miles away from us, so it took some time. This is something mom and dad took to heart. They lived the concept of loving family and giving back. Dad loved his brother, and we used to go and we'd go and he'd do everything he could to keep in touch. You know, I sit there and I marvel at that today. Part of family coming first was also taught to us when we were younger. We all had to go and support each other at our concerts and activities. Dad was all about having us support each other. He saw our talents and he had us work together. Now, Dad had my sister was working on her PhD, and she wasn't a great writer at that point when she started, and Dad put her in touch with me. And like, go ask your brother, he's a writer, go ask him for help. And because of my dad, he mended we didn't have a great relationship before this. I'd say after that, he used our talents to make us work together. And wow, Dad believed hard work was a reward and that it paid off in the end. I don't know if you know much about music teachers, but my dad, when he would come home from working, a lot of teachers get out at 3:30. My father would come home and he would work 3 to 4 more hours, usually 3 hours, Monday through Friday, most days. And then on Saturdays, he'd work another 3 to 4 hours. Most summers, he and my mom ran a camp store when we were younger. This was also a lesson about saving your money, because in order for us to stay away all summer, which my parents had no money in the summer. That's why they told us we were all stupid going into education. I won't say that we're all good at learning how to save, but it's something we were taught. Dad had a sense of humor. He enjoyed laugh-lined paper, and he would have a one-liner ready to share just to get a smile, and we'd never expect it, and we'd all laugh and smile. He taught us that we should enjoy what we do and be passionate about it. He would say, you can do anything you set your mind to do. If you love what you do, you will never work a day in your life. My father did things just for mom, just because she asked. He special ordered a kitchen table and chairs for my mom just because she wanted it. This was Dad teaching us about loving your spouse. Sometimes you do not need to ask why. You just do things because you love them. For those of us, for any of you who knew him, my dad would call people and check and see how they were doing, making sure they were okay. As a music man, my dad gave that message with greatness. It never mattered where he was. He was always willing to share love and kindness through his gift of music. Dad had a love of God that was special. As a kid, I thought this was why I went to church. But Dad saw church as more than going. He saw it as a way to give back. I really didn't understand this when I was younger. He was not giving back to the church. He was giving back to God. He substituted as a church organist, sang in the choir, and only later on became the church organist. He was in the bell choir and on many committees. It was to express his love of Jesus. These are the same reasons we know his favorite hymns. Even when Dad had difficulty playing the last few years, his love of hymns never faded. Glaucoma took his ability to read the music, but his muscle memory and recall those songs gave each of us many great memories. My dad lived life fully. He was a world traveler. He loved going to new places. He would tell you today to live your life with music and passion and see life as a new adventure. One life lesson I didn't mention above was my dad delivered just to me. I had a circumstance I didn't know how to handle, and as always, I went to my dad for advice. He didn't fail me. This bit of wisdom has driven me for the past 12 years. It makes me continue to share the evils of Islam and do shows each week for news. That wisdom from my dad was, you are responsible for what you know. I can say this, if I cry, it's only because I miss him. For I know without a doubt he's in heaven praising Jesus with music. I have to say that I have a father who loved Jesus beyond most of our understanding. And it's something that most people probably don't get. You don't have that. I wish you did. But when you get older, you learn. You have to be able to go to your dad. I'm going to stop my camera just because my video is just so shaky. My father is someone who taught us to love. And because of that, I'm here today and my life is different and better. His last few years, he didn't get glaucoma until he was in his 80s. His last few years, he was frustrated sometimes about playing because he knew he was missing notes. This is where I know he's happy because I don't see him missing any notes when he's in heaven. I think he's having a wild time. If there's a pipe organ up there and he's got a chance to play it, he's playing it. That's my dad. He'd be happy singing. He'd be happy playing and feeling all that much more healthier. And so it's nice to know where someone is when they go. And I can say that. Now, what I'm going to share next, I have to say thank you to Eric's work for connecting many of us. I now have a new idea for my next book. And Eric's partly responsible for it because he put a few people together that have just made me think. And one of those, again, is Lloyd DeJong. This week, I'm going to give you a tease about what I'm going to be doing. So let me pull this up and get it ready here. And I can get this. Here we go. All these nice little buttons I get to push before we get there. This is going to be interesting, and I hope we don't have any quiet from the peanut gallery because I always find this interesting. And I got to put this just a second. Come on. Go home first. All right.
By the way, thank you, Brother Paul, for sharing that. And I completely understand. The one thing that God, honestly, it's not even in my heart, despite my father not believing in the Lord because of, I don't know if too many people know, I used to be a Muslim. But nonetheless, I have a Heavenly Father. And I don't know, I don't really, I don't feel like I really pity not having that. I know that he will come to know the Lord, but at the same time, I always remember that passage where, that you're going to let go of family, friends, but you'll get that much more with persecutions. So with persecutions, remember that. Yeah.
I look at, people are like, I've had a lot of friends say they're sorry, they they have compassion and stuff towards me, and my dad fell the last week, and it was a bad fall, and it was more than I can comprehend at that, what happened. So he was in pain, and I look at it this way, and this is the thing that hits me every time. Dad was upset about not hitting those right notes. It bothered him. It bothered him all the time, even though he, towards the end, he wasn't all there, but it bothered him. So now I think about him. He's in heaven and he's celebrating knowing all those right notes and not missing one. And that song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which is what he played, it was always important to him. He had me sing it as a solo when I was a child, and as I was, all of us, each one of us kids actually played it at one point on whatever instrument we were playing. For me, it was singing. For my sisters, it was probably piano or clarinet or whatever. And I know I think about that, and I think about what that song communicated from him, and then his life lessons. They were, to me, those. I give credit to my sisters for helping me put that together. I wrote it, but they helped me organize it better, and they did a great job. I say, well, I probably cried a little bit while I was writing it, but again, I know where he is. There's not even a question in my mind. So there's great joy. There's always great joy knowing where somebody is. All right, let's get into this. Gnosticism. And I'm calling this the evil that just won't go away. I sure wish it would. Wait till you hear why I'm going to be getting into this. This will blow your mind. So let's talk about what Gnosticism is. I'm going to grow the screen just a bit so you can all see this. Now, Gnosticism, it comes from the word gnosis. That's what it's a G-N-O, that little symbol there, O-S-I-S, gnosis, knowledge. So I think this is actually important to understand why this word gnosis. You'll see this written in different ways, and gnosis is the best way to look at this. This is the word for knowledge, the Greek word for knowledge. And I'm kind of upset when I see it written different ways because I think it steals from the concept. Here, the little bit of Greek I know that I remember from too many years ago. This is an extremely, extremely important concept. And we're going to get into this just a little bit. But this is all about knowledge. And the concept of Gnosticism is about secret knowledge. And that goes against everything Christianity teaches. So I want you to start thinking about this concept of secret knowledge. Down here in the bottom, where I took this from, it says Gnosticism is literally the cult based on having special personal knowledge. Think about that. Special knowledge, personal knowledge, secret knowledge.
Sounds like the apple and the good and evil, that there's some knowledge that Adam and Eve didn't know about. But
well, and that's it. I mean, so some of this stuff is going to sound strange, but Leah, because you grew up in this faith structure called Islam, I think you'll be shocked because some of this will sound familiar. And this is, again, why I'm doing this, and I'm crediting Lloyd. He may end up work. He's done some similar stuff. I'm the one who writes books. He does these amazing presentations. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I have to credit him for a lot of the work he's done to get me going this way. So let's talk about what that core belief is of Gnosticism. There's always something in a belief structure. There's a core belief, something that if you can yank it out, everything falls. So this is the core belief. Secret knowledge gets you to heaven. You call it special knowledge. You want to call it secret knowledge, whatever it is, it gets you to heaven. The more knowledge you have, the higher you go up in heaven. Leah, do you remember hearing about this guy named Muhammad who went with this guy, uh, Jibril, and Jibril had a special knowledge. He would knock on a door and they'd ask who it was, and because of his name, he could get in. uh, and you think about that. So he had a special secret that he could get in and he could go to these higher levels. And that's, again, this secret knowledge. It's a little scary.
It seems to be common too in a lot of New Age religions, like, you know, ascending to a higher level or state that, you know, you didn't know before, prior, Buddhism, Hinduism, all these different things.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like it's all the same. It's the same, the copy paste type
Exactly. And it gets a little broader than that. And this is the part that got me. And I didn't see it. And this is what Lloyd was pointing out to me. Last week? I think it was last Wednesday. I was just kind of floored. You know, if I'm recommending people look up his last piece on socialism, because he connects socialism to Gnosticism. And that connects it to communism. So there's a lot of things going on today that are connected to Gnosticism. Now you see why I say it's that evil that won't go away. And I'm kind of mind blown. And these are just basic premises. God is good. The material world is evil. And this part here, I think about, and I look at the way Islam claims that Allah created. But at the same time, it also implies that he didn't. This is the interesting thing about Islam having contradictory statements. And, it'll say he did and he didn't, and it's there. Why do they say he didn't? I sat there and first time I looked at that, I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense. But if you look at this as Gnosticism, the form of Gnosticism, that little bit saying he didn't would follow through with this. And
I have a question. Can you give an example of a passage where he didn't? Because I'm trying to understand the.
Well, there's contradiction. You can look at it this way: all the passages that they talk about creating, where Allah creates, they contradict each other.
Mm-hmm.
So this implies that Allah didn't do the creation because he didn't know anything about. I mean, if he's got to contradict himself each time, he doesn't know. So he can't have taken part in it. He can sit there and claim he did, but he can't have taken part in it if he doesn't have the same story. And that's an example. There are passages in there that are. I have to go back and look them up. I'm gonna when I finish this. This is just an introduction. I'll be able to provide that for you. But this was just. I think it'll be surprising for everybody.
No. You gave me the context. I just missed that. But that's exactly what I was asking. I was trying to understand.
Yeah, but there's more. There's actual specific passages where it implies he didn't. So that's where I sit there and it kind of blows my mind when I'm looking at this. All right, so here's why I say Islam claims to be Gnostic. Now here we go. If you have Reliance on the Traveler with you, I am not putting up my copy. I'm sorry. I'm just going to read passages from Reliance of the Traveler, and I'm going to start with I was going to start with A1, and I'm actually going to start with A1.3, and just start thinking about this stuff. It says the position of Ashiras, the followers of Abdul Hassan Ashari, is that the mind is unable to know the rule of Allah. About the acts of those morally responsible except by means of his messengers and inspired books. So, secret knowledge. For minds are in obvious disagreement about acts. Some minds find certain acts good, and others find them bad. Moreover, one person can be of two minds about one and the same action. No, that is called the law of non-contradiction. The brain is not able to handle that. it doesn't allow that. But this is something Islam teaches, and this is why you'll see so many people in Islam declared insane, because it's an essential belief. And this is pretty interesting. Right here, A 1.3. You haven't even gotten off the first few pages. This is page 2 in Reliance of the Traveler, and they are creating, insanity. Moreover, caprice often wins out over the intellect, considering something good or bad. Oh, did they just say they are creating insanity? Sounds like it. Caprice often wins out over intellect, and considering something good or bad comes to be based on mere whim. So it cannot be said that an act which the mind deems good is therefore good in the eyes of Allah. Its performance called for, and its doer is rewarded by Allah, or that whatever the mind feels to be bad is less bad in the eyes of Allah. I'm going to skip down a little bit. Let's go down. It's going to skip over to A 2.0, the superiority of sacred knowledge over devotions. We have A 2.1. Are those who know and those who do not know equal? This is from the Quran 39:9. How about another one? Only the knowledgeable of his slaves fear Allah. Quran 35:28. We're talking about that secret knowledge. Here we go again. Quran 58:11. Allah raises those of you who believe, and those who have been given knowledge hold degrees. Oh, there are degrees of knowledge. Oh, that backs up Gnosticism. A 2.2. Here's the things the Prophet said. Whoever Allah wishes well, he gives knowledge of religion. Sounds like secret knowledge to me. The superiority of the learned Muslim over the devotee is as my superiority over the least of you. Again, these are quotes they're attributing to the Prophet. I guess that would be Muhammad. But, they don't really ever tell us in the Quran. It never calls him the Prophet in the Quran. So we'll just have to guess. Then the Prophet, here's another one. Allah and his angels, the inhabitants of the heavens and the earth, the very ant in its anthill, and the fish bless those who teach people what is good. We're talking again all about this special knowledge. Here's another one. A single learned Muslim is harder on the devil than 1,000 worshippers. Learned, special knowledge. Whoever travels a path seeking knowledge, Allah makes easy for him a path to paradise. Angels lower their wings for the seeker of knowledge out of pleasure in what he seeks. Again, secret knowledge. Those in heaven and the earth and the very fish in the water ask Allah to forgive the person endowed with sacred knowledge. The superiority of the learned Muslim over the devotee is like the superiority of the moon over all the stars. Really, I think they don't understand the difference between moon and stars. This is another statement Allah is ignorant, but they're calling it secret knowledge. We can skip over to A 2.3. Ali ibn Abi Talib, the religious scholar, is greater in reward than the fighter in the way of Allah who fasts the day and prays the night. Really? Why? Could that be because of secret knowledge? Gnosticism? Sure sounds like it. Yahya ibn Abi Kathir said this: studying sacred knowledge is a prayer. Oh, again, we're talking about secret knowledge. I'm going on. I'm skipping all the way. I'm on page 6 if you're in your Reliance of the Traveler. Sacred knowledge validates, so other acts of worship require it, though not vice versa. Scholars are the heirs of the prophets, while devotees are not characterized as such. And you get all these statements. I mean, again, so here's the one that caught me kind of off guard. And, rereading, it's not like it's the first time or the second time or the third or fourth time. I can't tell you how many times I've read this. But, one of these things you catch when you're going by. The funny thing is I had it highlighted. This comes from A 3.2. Allah Most High says, Whoever wants to, and this is the word choice that's catching me, whoever wants to cultivate, that's the word I'm highlighting, the afterlife, we shall increase for him his tillage. While whoever wants to cultivate, again, another that word I'm highlighting, this world, we shall give him of it, but he will have no share in the next. The big word they're using nowadays to push reincarnation concept.
One thing, I don't mean to interrupt you. One thing I realized in that passage, it's like saying, get what's in heaven now, or get what's there now.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this concept of cultivate. So if you look at mangas, or you look at animes that have to do with out of Japan or China, they use this word cultivate a lot. And this is it used in promoting the concept of reincarnation. And we've been doing the dissecting the Quran with Dr. Kufar, we see this kind of concept brought in every once in a while. And you wonder if he's really mixing things. And again, the concept of Gnosticism works with reincarnation. The concept of Gnosticism is behind a lot of Islamic belief. It is the foundation of most Islamic belief. And I say most, if not all. I'm kind of shocked when I think about it. You know what? One of the things that gets me, and we've read this when we're doing dissecting the Quran, and Dr. Kufar has talked about this. Islam has different levels of heaven. There's 7 levels of heaven. There's 7 levels of earth. I'm not, I'm not.
There's also 7 chakras. And
yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So you're catching this, and
but the
this
one
ties
thing
a lot
with
of it together.
is it's unique. You know what I like that the Bible differs in? It describes the 7-fold like spirit of God, but that isn't something that is attributed to something that a person can discover. This is just the way that God is, for example, but it's not levels to come to know him. It's complete. It's, some people might say like, hey, look, this is in Christianity too, but it's a completely different like story here. It's not even the same.
Well, the funny thing, the big difference between Gnosticism, this belief in secretive knowledge getting you someplace. Jesus said, whatever I said to you in private or secret, shout it from the mountaintops. He didn't want anything to be secret. Okay, so what is the most well-known thing of what Jesus said? It's called the Sermon on the Mount. You know what? That was what Jesus taught his disciples in secret. You think about that. He had them come up, and when they gathered around him up there on that mountain, they were alone. And the most well-known thing taught today, it doesn't matter if you're in by yourself or what. This is the stuff that is taught all over the place. The great things Jesus said, and they'll always mention the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the meek, blessed are the poor in spirit. It goes on and on. But those were things taught to believers. They weren't taught to people who didn't believe. And yet, today, the most secret thing taught was shouted from the mountaintops in such a way that they use this all over the world. And I'll skip that. So here's the next thing I want to get into. And for anyone listening, you may want to grab a pencil. You may want to grab a pen, because I'm going to give you some information, or you may want to come back later and watch. I'm going to give you, we're asking for people to help us with this. CARE wants taxpayers to subsidize them. And I want you to think about this. This is in San Diego. This happened October 26th. San Diego voted to support Hamas in America. I want you to, that is despicable. That San Diego is supporting CARE, which is Hamas in America. Shame. Now, here's the things you can do. You can write to these email addresses, District 1 Community at SDCounty.ca.gov, Joel.Anderson at sdcounty.ca.gov. Tara Lawson, REME Lawson Remmer at sdcountyca.gov. You can write to Nathan Fletcher. It's Nathan.Fletcher at sdcountyca.gov. Jim.Desmond at sdcountyca.gov. You can also write to Plus Media, local at sduniontribune.com. Gloria at sdbj.com. Jordan at coastnewsgroup.com. Please do this. This is scary stuff. So what I'm going to be sharing with you,
I don't like that it's specifically the very area that a lot of Christian apologists are going and doing a lot of work in, and it's just funny. That's the area they're trying to get into that with Sharia.
Well, this is the thing to think about. They are supporting a Sharia endorsing organization. It's not. And then at the same time, this is a terrorist organization because they are Hamas in America. They will not condemn Hamas. They are basically do self-identify as Hamas. So they're not going to come out and publicly state they are, but they do at the same time. So again, they play both sides of the coin. They'll say they're not, but they won't deny that they are at the same time. So it's kind of a... So let me get into this. Now, we owe William Gothrop a lot for this work that I'm going to share. Dr. William Gothrop is an educator on the college level with intelligence analysis. So here's the stuff that I think is important. On October 25th, the County of San Diego's Board of Supervisors will consider a request to approve. They did consider this, a request, and they approved it, to approve a $15,000 grant to the California branch of CARE to fund its annual fundraising banquet. Wait a minute. Why does CARE need 15 grand for a fundraising banquet? Why are they expecting the government to give them 15 grand? Are they not able to raise money? Is that what this is about? You're going to fund a fundraising banquet. There's a little bit of insanity there.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Why are they doing that?
It doesn't make any sense now when I think about it. So when Dr. Gothrop wrote this, he says, recommend you don't do that. Okay, let's think about this. CARE is an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation trial. Wait a minute. That's the largest terrorism finance trial that ever existed in the United States. And here's the proof. Look, there it is. List of unindicted co-conspirators and joint venturers. It says right there, number 3, the following are individual entities who and or were members of the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood's Palestine Committee and its organizations. Number 11.
You better really save this video because YouTube might take it down.
That's okay. This is a legal document. It's a public opinion. It's actually out there. Anybody can get it. Council on American Islamic Relations, aka CARE. Okay. Number 2. CARE wants to supplant the Constitution with Islamic law. Okay, let's read this. It says Omar Ahmad. This is from the San Ramon Valley Herald. And I'm just going to read the highlighted paragraphs. Omar Ahmad, chairman of the board of Council on American Islamic Relations, spoke before a packed crowd at the Flamingo Palace Banquet Hall on Perella Boulevard, urging Muslims not to shirk their duty of sharing the Islamic faith with those who are on the wrong side. Oh, who are the wrong side? I'm just going to keep going then. Muslim institutions, schools, and economic power should be strengthened in America. He said those who stay in America should be open to society without melting into it. Keeping mosques open so anyone can come and learn about Islam, he said. Now, here's the next highlighted passage. If you choose to live here in America, you have a responsibility to deliver the message of Islam, he said. Islam isn't in America to be equal to any other faith, but to become dominant, he said. The Quran, the Muslim book of scripture, should be the highest authority in America, In Islam, the only accepted religion on earth, he said. Think about that. They want to finance that.
It's nice how they phrase it that way, but the thing with it is Islam is like predominant not only in religion, it's the entire legal system. They have
Yes.
their own legal system in the Middle East. They have their own every honestly it's a it's how do I say it?
They
Like
consider
a
they don't consider it a religion. They
it's a
consider
form
it
of theocracy.
they consider it a way of life, and they
Yeah.
consider the law,
A
the Sharia,
government.
which is this green
Yeah.
book called the Reliance of the Traveler. They consider that, in fact, all of Islam functions under Sharia.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
people don't know how to pray unless they learn. They're taught. Now, what are they taught? They're taught Sharia, because that is not in the Quran. It is not in the Hadith. The way they bang their heads on the ground, the way they sit, the way they kneel, everything is taught. That is not in the Quran. It's in the Sharia. It tells them exactly how to pray. It tells them if it's if their prayers are invalidated. All this stuff is in the Sharia, and these are Sharia endorsers, and that to us should be scary, especially when you look at what's in Sharia. And again, I will continue to ask people: go buy your own copy of Reliance of the Traveler. Share it with as many people as you can. If you've got extra money out there, buy copies of it. Send it to your legal your law representatives. Make them aware of what this is. This is scary stuff. I'm going to keep going here. Now, this is finally, CARE is a subset of the Muslim Brotherhood. CARE is a mosque in America. You can find it in my book. It's available for an e-copy now if you go online. Civilization, Jihad, and the Myth of Modern Islam. If you want a paperback, you have to contact me. You can do that offline. I'll give you my email. It's BEREAN_research@yahoo.com. Just send me an email requesting that. It costs $15, and that's the only way you get the paperback. I probably about $5 worth of probably about $5 cost as far as shipping. Okay, let's talk about what happened this year. On October 1st, CARE sheds crocodile's tears for female victims of oppression. This is from the Baltimore Sun. The upshot of this editorial from the director of CARE Maryland is that women are right to fight oppression in Iran. The protests have given rise to anti-hijab Islamophobia in the United States, and the right of women to choose to wear the hijab in every country must be respected. The pretzel logic isn't even half of it. Now, again, this part is written by Dr. Gothrop. First, there's the false equivalence of the Iranian regime's official systemic treatment of female protesters versus isolated incidents against Muslim women in America. Second, there's the echo of the sentiments. The real tragedy of 9/11 was the supposed rise in Islamophobia afterwards, not the attacks of the deaths of 3,000 people. A viewpoint which is totally warped. Not the attacks. Think about that. More fundamentally, the solidarity this editorial expresses with Muslim women is simply not believable, given the true position of women in Islam, which is not good. And everybody knows it. A woman's testimony is worth less than that in their courts. So when the writer says he affirms the right of Muslim women to wear or not wear the hijab as they choose, remember, Muslims have a religious duty to lie to you if it will advance the cause of Islam, which this editor is surely trying to do, even though it ties itself in knots in the process. So, you can read the article, but again, when they misinform you, it's scary stuff. The Red Green Axis was on display in Ohio this year. CARE Ohio staff attorney Mariam Abidi was recently a panelist during the Inter-Community Justice and Peace Center annual gathering. She said, to move from compassion into radical compassion is to recognize solidarity and to recognize that there are material and historical connections for all of us to get free. Could that be talking about Muslims getting free? No. Because if that was happening, they would, you just got to stop and think the women are not free under Islam, and the non-Muslims are not free under Islam. It doesn't matter what country you're in. And what I mean by that is if Islam is dominant, you're not free. She also said this: it is a fact that post 9/11, the Islamophobia and hyper-policing of Muslims that we see is only possible because of centuries of anti-black policing. Really? You consider hyper-policing of Muslims really after 9/11? I didn't see it. It didn't happen any place that I know of. I do know that they're watching certain mosques because they had proven jihadis there. Oh, they had connections to terrorism there. Wait a minute. Does that sound like a reason to investigate if you have past jihadis someplace? Past actors of terrorism there? Sure sounds like a good reason to investigate. That sounds like cause. CARE New York joins CC New York students in this community college New York students in demanding City College of New York in demanding interfaith space. According to CCNY students, the administration has displaced the interfaith space for several years, and despite many attempts to persuade the administration to provide adequate appropriate space for interfaith activities, the CCNY administration failed students to dismiss their requests. There's a problem with this. According to Sharia, they don't need it. They can go home and they can skip prayers. They're allowed to. This is the point. I mean, if you read Sharia, they don't need this. This is all about showing strength. This is important to understand. This is why we have to stand up against groups like CARE. CARE's legislative priorities. Let's think about that. CARE's congressional scorecard track congressional votes and co-sponsorship of key bills, including the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2021, Combating International Islamophobia Act, Stop Militarizing Law Enforcement Act, the Anti-Muslim Ban National Origin-Based Anti-Discrimination for Non-Immigrants Act. No ban act. Well, there never was a ban. The Access of Counsel Act, Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. Oh, wait a minute. They were only standing against the Uyghur people? Why would that be? Could they all be Muslim? Yep, they were. Repeal of 2002 authorization for use of military force in Iraq. And the Racial and Religious Profiling Act. Who are they trying to stop being profiled? Ooh, wait a minute. That's not too hard to figure out. CARE never misses an opportunity to attack people on TV. Now, this is from Jihad Watch. TV reporters will also try to justify the inclusion of CARE in a story by saying such and such is receiving national attention, although the organization CARE may comprise as few as 3,000 people. Think about that. Oh, CARE is doing this to get national attention, but there's only 3,000 people? Really? Their membership is quite small. In fact, the very station, WDJT, ran a story that began with CARE. Now, this is last week's news, and I remember reading this last week. Ran a story that began with CARE and ended with a statement that CARE had nothing to do, this whole article had nothing to do with CARE. They were just trying to include them. And I sat there laughing when I was done reading that article. Like, why did they even mention them? Well, just because they could. And, this is the stuff that makes you sit there and go, why are they doing this? Well, it's because they can. Now I'm going to get into a couple articles. Let me just pull them up. And I did not have a lot of articles because I didn't know how I would do earlier. And that's the honest reason I don't have a lot of articles. I didn't know how I would do reading this the eulogy that I gave for my dad earlier. I felt like I had to do it. I don't know if you're keeping up with the the information that's out there on Russia and Ukraine. This is a Russian news article. It comes out of Moscow Times. I'm going to put the link in the chat room. I like to listen to all sides. I mean, I don't care if the Ukrainians put it out. I don't care if the Russians put it out. I think it's important to listen to all sides. Why is that? Oh, I didn't catch this. Ibn Fibbin's Mosque. That's a good question. Jesus Worldwide. That was a good question. Ibn Fibbin. They were talking about him last week. Isn't Ibn Fibbin? No, Ibn Fibbin isn't the one who had a pretend attack, is he? I can't remember. I think he was in the news for that. All right, so this next article is called Kadyrov calls for Russian jihad across all of Ukraine. Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov continued his anti-Ukrainian tirade late Tuesday with territorial claims beyond captured regions in what he characterized as Russia's jihad against pro-Western Ukraine. Now, when I read this article, I sat there and laughed. Let me tell you why. I mean, there's like, okay, they're trying to say he's an ally of Putin. Ooh. But here's the humor in this. When this conflict started, there were fatwas passed. It doesn't matter which side you fight on. You get to kill non-Muslims. So it didn't matter. As long as you were out there, you were committing an act of jihad, you were safe. And that's what they did. They have Muslims fighting on both sides, and they don't care because their goal was to kill non-Muslims, nothing more. And that's exactly what's being utilized. The Russians are using them. The Ukrainians are using them. If you look at the concept of Nazis, you will see that they also did that. Nazis used the Muslims like mad. So don't be surprised. The next article I found, and this is also from Jihad Watch, but I like to go to the original articles. And the reason I do that is because I like to get to the nitty gritty. I like the good translations. Medforth does an outstanding job translating. So this one comes out of France. And 10 women returned from Syria charged with terrorism in France. This came out the 25th. Charges have been brought against them. Think about this, 10 women. On Sunday, October 23rd, 10 women who had returned from Syria earlier in the week were charged with terrorism, Europe 1 reported. The women who were wanted on arrest warrants had been taken into police custody on their arrival in French soil on the night of October 19th to the 20th at the premises of the Directorate General for Internal Security. One of them was also charged with crimes against humanity and genocide. Some have also been charged with deprivation of parental duties, endangering the health and safety of a child. Another 19-year-old woman who had been taken to the Iraqi-Syrian zone as a child was under educational care, as there has been no indication so far that charges should be brought against her. All of them had been taken home on Wednesday night, along with 3 other women for whom an arrest warrant had been issued, where they were charged and detained on Thursday. They have been captured in areas in northeastern Syria and northern Iraq occupied by the Islamic State terrorist militia until 2019 and have been placed in camps controlled by the Kurds. This is the second major repatriation operation in 3 months. On July 5th, France had repatriated 16 mothers and 35 minors. In the meantime, a woman and her 2 children had been repatriated at the beginning of October. In the hours following the second repatriation operation, government spokesman told the LCI channel that there would be some mass repatriations and this will be done gradually. Now, you sit there and wonder, what's the purpose in doing this? You're going to bring them home. You're going to charge them with crimes, put them in jail. Are they going to change their belief structures? Or are they going to become more solidified? Yes, they did commit these horrible crimes. You really want them, when they get out of jail, He's got one you're bringing home and you're spending all the money to take care of them in a jail. What was wrong? This may sound horrible to me. What was wrong with leaving them where they wanted to be in Syria or Iraq? How is it the government's responsibility to take care of people who didn't want to be part of your country? That's something that is beyond my scope of understanding. They chose to leave. They made the choice to become jihadis. I get the children are the ones who lose out. The unfortunate truth is your children are stuck because of your parents. It doesn't matter where you live. That's the reality.
You know what topic you should do in light of this? You should compare the way the Old Testament law, for example, how they dealt with topics like this for the Hebrew culture versus the way our amazing government deals with it now. And that's with sarcasm.
The current government that we have, I personally wouldn't be surprised if they are engaged in secret repatriations, and that they are bringing them here in numbers I don't want to imagine. That brings me up to an article, which I have to go find real quick, that I did not put up, but let me just find this article real quick. Todd Bensman did an incredible article this week, and it's really important that people actually read this article. I'm going to read a part of it for you, but I saw this article. I'm on LinkedIn, and if anybody ever wants to see good articles that are on these topics, I recommend going to LinkedIn, using your membership there. Todd Bensman, who's a personal friend of mine, he's an outstanding research writer. I'm going to put this link in the chat room. Everyone should go to this article. Write him a thank you at the very least for putting this out. Get this up here. Okay. And go. There we go. This article is extremely important. It's called, and I know it's not exactly on jihadis, but we're talking about border issues. We're talking about people coming into the country. And I still think Biden's allowing a large number. Todd has also written a large number of articles about jihad. Wait till you see his new book. Is supposed to be coming out any day now. I suggest you pre-order it. I did. I can't wait to get it. It'll blow your mind. This article, let me say, it's entitled "Vicious African War Criminals Are Settling in Your Backyard Thanks to Biden's Failed Southern Border." Listen to this. President Joe Biden's government has just granted the latest temporary stay of deportations to thousands of African emigres, this time to Ethiopians inside the United States, and including those who recently crossed over the southern border. This comes on the heels of a similar deferred and forced departure, granting to Liberians living in the United States since two 1990 era civil wars, as well as to Cameroonians and Sudanese. Human rights groups who gained those objectives are also pressuring the administration to protect Mauritanians and Congolese. These immigration moves should not pass without a remark about America's sometimes naive penchant for admitting large populations of people from foreign lands of utter barbarity. With little public assistance, that background vetting can prevent the importation of human rights violators and war criminals. Some 40% of those reaching southern borders are coming from 150 countries other than Mexico and Central America. A record percentage that includes representation from throughout Africa. Stepping throughout the ruins of America's collapsing southern border and other legal admittance processes are thousands of people from African nations teeming with tribal warlords and vicious armed militias that rape, pillage, plunder, and murder. Sound like jihad to some of you? Perhaps many are actually persecuted victims of these militia. But Jungle Job of Liberia was certainly not one of them. He's on a long and lengthening list of vicious African war criminals that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Human Rights Violators, and War Crimes Center has rousted from U.S. hiding in just the past couple of years, including an Ethiopian living in Georgia who tortured his victims to unconsciousness and was convicted of gross human rights abuses in absentia. His real name is Muhammad Jabata. Oh, wait. His name was Muhammad. Did you catch that? Jabata. He had been a resident of Philadelphia for nearly 20 years after arriving from Liberia and claiming asylum in 1998. He was among thousands of Liberians who fled the wars and resettled in Pennsylvania. But in the life he left in Liberia, Jungle Jabba served as a commander of the United Liberation Movement of Liberia for democracy. During that country's first civil war from 1989 to 1997, his organization, the HRVWCC, finally rooted him out. So this is a Human Rights Council, I'm sorry. Finally rooted him out. Investigators found that during his service, Jabata and his soldiers wantonly murdered civilian non-combatants, sexually enslaved women, tortured and executed prisoners of war, desecrated corpses, and the worst part of all, I believe that there's actually something worse, they ritually ate their victims. He would have hearts cut from chests and cooked for his soldiers to eat. According to testimony from Jabata's 2017 immigration fraud trial in Pennsylvania, in one instance, fighters under his command murdered a villager, removed his heart, and ordered the town's chief's wife to cook it, and then killed the town chief and forced her to cook his heart. This was the man who easily lied his way on immigration applications to 20 years of sanctuary until ICE caught up with him. He landed a 30-year prison sentence in 2019 at considerable investigative and prosecutorial time and expense to U.S. taxpayers. Why is it important to skip the vetting process? Because this is the kind of stuff that happens. I've had Todd on here. I don't know how many times Todd Ben's been on here. And we talk about the one all-important thing that they have been doing that was created was this vetting system. This vetting system is extremely important. We need to give it time to work. We need to get more people working that vetting system. I get that. We need the resource. We need the people who have the correct wisdom and training to do this job. We shouldn't be allowing this to happen. But with a porous border and these let them in if they're from this country or that country, that's not good. It's not good for America. If they had no problem with things like cannibalism or rape or murder where they were committing those acts, do you think they'll actually change their behavior when they get here? It's like, it's not going to happen. They'll become mass criminals here. If they're good at hiding, can you hide from that? Do you have a right to hide from those things? Don't the people who you prosecute, that you treated so badly, if you were one of them, have a right to justice? This is scary stuff. I look at this stuff and I get concerned. How much more do we need to be wary of? When I look Todd Bensman's articles, I can't recommend them any higher. It's important that we actually get out and start paying attention to men like him and what they say, because these are important things to keep us safe. We have to do what we can to get. He works for. Let me get this right. I'll leave that one alone because I can't get that in my head right now. Even out of the UK, we have issues there all the time, and that is since the immigration issue, the hijra issue over there, and they're still having issues with, quote, grooming gangs. And this is an article from the Manchester Evening News I'm going to share. Again, this is a hijra. The purpose was to take over countries in Europe. This one it should bother you. Why are we not standing up and saying no? Why don't we put more information on the hijra? You know, the most important articles I've put out, the most read articles that I put out. I've had over 150,000 readers of my articles on the blog that I put out. Over 150,000. You know, the vast majority of them, I'd say about 100,000, have read the hijra articles. Wow. Well, could it be because of stuff like this? This comes from the Manchester Evening News. 2 of Rockdale's grooming gang members will be deported to Pakistan after losing an appeal. Ooh. Their claim was human rights grounds. Wait a minute. What kind of human rights do you have after you rape and groom little girls? It's just pretty sick to think that they would have any concept of human rights if they think that other people's human rights don't matter to them. The 2 members of the Rockdale grooming gang have lost their appeal against deportation from the UK. Adil Khan and Abdul Rauf, age 51 and age 52, were among 9 gang members jailed in 2012 for a catalog of child sex offenses in Rockdale. Khan, then in his 40s, impregnated one girl, refusing to accept the child was his until a DNA test was done. He then met the other girl he trafficked to others for sex, using violence when she objected. He was sentenced to 8 years in 2012. After half his time was served, he was released. Do you think he stopped? Ralph, a father of 5, trafficked a 15-year-old girl for sex, driving her to secluded areas to have sex with her in his taxi. It gets a lot more disgusting, and I can't even read it. No. Human rights? They want to claim they have human rights? What about the girls' human rights that they stole? I have issues with the concept of this. How can we... This is where I think my father's words about being responsible for what you know. We need to start standing up. We need to start... We can't allow ourselves to be silent. We have an election coming up. You've heard every year that this year is the most important election. Well, I've heard it said I don't know how many times. My honest belief is this might be the last one. If we lose, if the Republicans lose this election here in the States, there's a number of things that's going to happen. 1, the Democrats will rule the House, they will rule the Senate, and they will feel like they have free reign for 2 more years. Socialism and communism will prevail. They will be allowed to stop. They will be allowed to stop the transportation of goods to your local store. Now I'm talking to former truck drivers, and they're watching the lowering of Joe Biden's lowering of diesel, the reserve fuel. They're concerned. I think they're very, very concerned. I look at that, their concern, and I say, look, I told you. I don't know how many times I told everybody. The attacks on the food processing plants I considered node testing. They were trying to figure out if they took out this one or that one, how would it affect the rest of the food supply? Their testing didn't work. It didn't reveal the results they wanted. So what's the next result? To cause people to get angry and mass rioting. You have to stop the food supply. That's what they're working on. When Joe Biden lowered this, we have maybe 20 days left of reserves for diesel. Now, I was talking again with truck drivers, and they said, well, we can manufacture that ourselves. My question is, how many companies would be able to do that? How many men, women would have the knowledge to do that? I'm concerned. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm saying if we allow Democrats to stay in charge, it's likely. I'm talking with people around the world that are watching us, and they're saying the same things. When I talk to people from other countries outside of North America, and they're saying the same things, they're concerned about us. They're really concerned. They want us to thrive. They want us to return to being the great country we were just a few years ago. It's not that they want us to as much as they need us to. And I sit there and if we fall, what's left? There is no place else to go in the world for safety. Where will Christians go? At present, they have no place because they're not being accepted here in the United States when they seek asylum. They weren't accepted under Obama either. Hundreds of thousands of Muslims were accepted under this president and Obama, but you kind of have Obama still in office. That's why we call him Biden. There is too much going on. And as my dad said, you're responsible for what you know. I'm going to end early, and I want you to keep thinking. If you're responsible for what you know, how do you put it into action? How do you do that today? Not how do you do it tomorrow. How do you do that today? What does that mean? You keep silent, or do you do something today? It's extremely important. You need to start standing up. You need to start saying things in public ways. And don't be afraid. Why? Because if we don't speak up now, you might not be able to do that next year. They've already put under their watch, they have held people for 2 years imprisoned without the due process of a trial. They have not been allowed to see lawyers until recently. Their family members weren't allowed to see them until recently. One of them committed suicide. This week, one guy got off. Why? Because he has autism. You think about that. They imprisoned a guy for 2 years. And now they're saying, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done that because he's got autism. Isn't that a statement that you have illegally held someone for 2 years? He wasn't allowed to go home. I don't know what we can do beyond sharing information at this point. We have to make sure everybody knows what's happening. The information that is earlier in this show about doing what you can to get San Diego informed about the dangers of care, the Council on American Islamic Relations, get that information out. Go back, look, see those addresses, those email addresses. Send them information. Tell them how dangerous what they're doing is. They're inviting a terror organization and partnering with them, giving them they already gave them 15 grand. Don't worry. DHS has already done it, right? It's okay. San Diego can do it too. After all, they gave him, CARE was given tens of thousands of dollars by DHS under Obama. You know why they did that? Because they feared a Republican might come in. And they were hardening the target. That was how they got their money. Hardening the target. Really? Who's going to attack? See, they had to justify this spending, claiming they were being attacked they were potential targets of terrorists. Really? Let's think about this. CARE is Hamas in America. Really? Do you know anyone who's attacking Hamas here in the United States physically? Because I don't. I mean, the only thing I can think of is legal organizations, government organizations that do what they can to stop them from being financed. Terror organizations being threatened by another terror organization. Kind of humorous when you think about it, because even the Sunnis and the Shiites get together when they're talking about financing jihad. Thank you all for listening. God bless you all. And we'll see you all next week. Thank you.